With the first pick of the 2025 MLB Draft, the Washington Nationals select Eli Willits, a shortstop from Fort Cobb Broxton High School in Fort Cobb, Oklahoma.
Day one of the 2025 MLB Draft is now behind us. So 105 selections, I believe, through 3 rounds. And we're here to talk about it. Jason Churchill with Joe Doyle, draft and develop Future Star Series FSS Plus. Joe, well, normally I would expect to bring up something that happened like 9 picks into the first round or late in the first round, or at least 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks into the first round. But right off the bat, I think this draft got a little bit crazy. And, what was your reaction when the Washington Nationals, when you learned they were taking Eli Willits there, the prep shortstop from Fort Cobb Broxton High School in Oklahoma?
Yeah, man, death, taxes, and Scott Boras. Yeah, it's just, I had heard whispers in the days leading up to this whole thing that Eli Willits was, gathering steam at 2, and that Eli Willits was gathering steam at 1, and then, kind of at the, and then kind of as Sunday morning arrived, all of the buzz with directors and analysts and scouts was Boras is playing hardball. Boras is playing Boras ball. And so, I mean, I guess it doesn't totally surprise me that both of those teams walked away from those 2 players, because the numbers just didn't add up. I tell you, Jason, I don't think the Eli Willits pick was as stunning as the Tyler Bremner pick, because that was a curveball.
Let's get to that. What's behind that decision? Is this just a money play? Is this because we saw how it unfolded? Do the Angels owe their other picks significantly over slot money? What was the idea there, taking Tyler Bremner at 2?
I think it's as simple, and I really do think it's as simple as the Angels felt like Tyler Bremner was the better arm. They just thought he was a better arm than Kade Anderson. Now, we haven't seen the bonus number. I would expect it's going to be, reasonably under slot. But when you think about it, there were rumors leading up to this morning. I published my mock draft on Saturday, and I'm just going to toot my own horn. I think I was the first person to say Tyler Bremner was going to go in the top 3 picks. I didn't have him going 2, but the fact that I had him going 3, I think speaks to I don't think the Angels are saving that much money, because I think his floor might have been 3. And so because of that, I think they just really liked the Tyler Bremner profile more than the Kade Anderson profile. And, if you go back to February and March and early April, when Bremner was struggling, the Angels were thick at his games. I mean, they were really getting in there, seeing as much of Tyler as they could. And I think they just stayed with it through the struggles, while the public sector, myself included, figured that he was taking a fall.
Yeah, and he's an interesting cat. Obviously 95 plus, into the upper 90s, pretty good fastball. The changeup is nasty. That's probably a 70 grade changeup, right? The slider was the one thing everybody was looking for, and he wasn't throwing it a whole lot early. He obviously doesn't pitch against significant competition on any sort of a regular basis. That's a thing. It's a little easier to get past that part of it with pitchers, I think. Stuff plays. It's a little easier to judge stuff than someone's ability to hit stuff. But how good is that slider? I mean, if you go looking for highlights, you're going to find it, and you're going to find some pretty darn good sliders. How good is that slider, and how important for you is that slider for Bremner in order to kind of, in a way, fair or unfair to him, to kind of live up to being the number 2 pick?
Yeah, I mean, Bremner was throwing his out pitch against righties was changeups. And, seriously, I mean, part of me is tip of the cap, you're getting right-handed hitters out with a righty changeup. That's super, super advanced at the college level. You just don't see guys doing that. I would say this, Bremner's capacity to shape a breaking ball is there. I think at its absolute best, it will flash above average at 81 to 82. But there's a hump in it, and he'll broadcast it. And, at his absolute best, when he's really ripping it and it's shorter, it's 84 to 85. All of this is to say Tyler Bremner doesn't have solid feel for his go-to breaking ball right now, but I think he has shown enough components to his profile to suggest if a player development program, gets their hands on Tyler, I think the Angels and Tyler will be able to get to a place where you can get batters out with the breaking ball. It's not where it needs to be. It's not consistent right now, but he's shown enough traits and components with the ability to spin the ball that I think he's going to be able to get to an above average breaking ball. And if he doesn't, and it just never comes, it's Michael Wacha, and there's no problem with taking Michael Wacha has like 21 career WAR, 22 WAR.
It's a great comp too for a guy that didn't have the college breaking ball. Because that was the deal with Wacha. There were some that wanted him in the top 10. It was like, you can't take that guy. He can't spin a breaking ball. And he's had like a 12-year career or whatever so far. So, and he's been pretty good some of those years. So that's really interesting. We talk about the whole 3-pitch thing. Got to have a way to get, left-handers out. He obviously has a way to get left-handers out. So then it turns to, is Bremner going to be able to get right-handers out enough with that changeup? And, I guess we'll see. But there have been a couple of pretty much 2-pitch only starters. And I'm not throwing comps out there, but in this day and age, we don't see it. But it's not like Kurt Schilling threw a breaking ball. You know what I mean? Like, he was a 2-pitch dude, and it was fastball splitter. They were just 2 really good pitches that he commanded really, really well. So maybe on the downside, Bremner's more of a mid-rotation guy, but he just commands everything really well, and he just gets people out with his splitter. I mean, there were times Kevin Gossman wasn't throwing anything even remotely close to a breaking ball, and then he started throwing both changeup and splitter. So the whole breaking ball thing sometimes gets overworked. We do that with the changeup a little bit sometimes too, when we're talking about opposite hitters. So interesting pick there. I kind of made a joke in my head when you said, Tyler Bremner, he gets into pro ball, he, player development gets a hold of him. And I'm like, I think the question here that I have just personally is, do the Los Angeles Angels have a player development department? Like, that's the question here, because they just haven't done a whole lot with their farm system the last few years.
I'll do you one more. My only fear with the Bremner pick is I think he needs development. I think he needs weight. I think he needs to learn a breaking ball that he can execute both in shape and command routinely. And what fears me about the Angels draft on day one in general is you take Bremner, okay, and you go, oh, this is a little bit different than what the Angels have done. I don't think this is a fast traveler. I don't think Bremner's going to be a big leaguer in June of 2026. The thing that scares me is Chase Shores was the 47th pick, and then Nate Snead was the 105th pick. Both of those guys are, and I guess I mean this in an endearing way, same old Angels. Like, those are fast to the majors, hard throwing relief types. And I got to say, and I think you would agree with this, they've done that over the last 2 years. Taking those types of arms over the last 2 years. And while we applaud them for the Zach Nettos and the Nolan Shanuels and the Christian Moores, what we don't often talk about with the Angels is all of the arms that they believe are fast to the majors and that they do rush at times.
What have they got out of that, to be honest with you? I mean, the jury's still out on the jury's still out on Christian Moore. Congratulations for getting him to the big leagues. That doesn't impress me. Zach Netto's a good player, a really good player. Nolan Shanuel, I still don't like to pick. I just don't think that's what the draft is for. Getting your average everyday first baseman. That's not what it's for when you pick in the top 15 in any draft, including this draft. That's not what it's for. And some teams do kind of lay up like that. And so I'll criticize the Angels for that as well. So anyway, you get Willits at 1, you get Bremner at 2. The Mariners are jumping for joy here because Kade Anderson was the number 1 player on their board, correct? So Kade Anderson goes there at 3. I don't think it's any surprise that Ethan Holiday went 4, and we saw all the lovely pictures of Ethan Holiday as a baby with his dad in 2007 in a Rockies uniform. If that wasn't that's the worst kept secret in Major League Baseball, was Holiday going to the Rockies, it seems. But getting back to Seattle at 3, getting Anderson there, that seems like the biggest win in the top 10 or so. If that's your number one player, whether they're right or wrong, we'll find out. You get your number one player at number 3, and then it gets reported that he's agreed to an underslot deal for around $8.8 million, which is about $700,000 below slot for that pick. The Mariners have to be ecstatic here.
I think that the Mariners are on the short list of 4 or 5 teams that walked away with the biggest haul on day one. And that starts with getting Kade Anderson, who, listen, other outlets had Kade Anderson as their number 1 prospect in this class. I didn't. I had Kade. I had Kade number 2, which, I guess that's not too low. But the thing that I love about Kade is in this class, what you're looking for in a draft. I know it's like a kitschy, word that people criticize in the draft, but you are looking for floor. You are looking for a big leaguer. It doesn't matter.
Otherwise, you're just taking this high school, this raw high school kid, because you think his upside is a 63, and his chances to get there's like 0.01%. Right there's obviously floor.
If it's all ceiling, Quentin Young is a top 5 pick, and he goes
exactly
40.
Alec Blair is going 14. Yeah,
correct. Perfect comp. Perfect example. So listen, I think you get Kade Anderson, not only my second player on my board, but you get him into what I believe to be one of the top player development systems a Kade Anderson could have landed in, both with the pitch mix, with the operation, with the way he moves. Like he is everything that George Kirby was. He is everything in a not a 6'6" frame, but he's everything that Logan Gilbert was. Kade Anderson in the Mariners system is a guy that goes from 92 to 94 at LSU, touching a 7 here and there, to go into high performance camp and turning into a guy that lives 94 to 96 and will grab an 8 in the first inning routinely in his starts. And it's 4 pitches, it's polish, it's mix, it's strikes, it's pitchability, it's everything that you want. So I'll say this for a system like Seattle's that currently lacks proximity pitching and mid-rotation pitching. You can say what you want about Jurangelo Sainja or Ryan Sloan, but neither one of those guys is Kade Anderson. And Kade Anderson immediately rival. It's close. It's a coin flip for me between he and Colt Emerson, but they're both like top 30 prospects in the sport.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm probably going to have Anderson 1. It's really hard to pass that up. It really is, but I'm going to have to think long and hard about that. I'm with you there. Anderson would not have been my choice. I would have shot for the moon a little bit more. But it's hard to blame a team that is in a winning window taking a pitcher who has, number 2 upside, especially a lefty that probably could be ready to pitch for you next year. It's hard to blame them for that. You're having some pitching issues right now with some injuries. Bryce Miller's been out. Luis Castillo's probably a little bit on the downside. He and Logan Gilbert are getting closer to free agency. You might have decision to make there. It's hard to blame a team in a winning window for maybe valuing floor and proximity a little more than they would if they were the Washington Nationals, because that's the question. Well, if Kade Anderson's so good, why didn't the Nationals take him? Well, maybe the Nationals don't buy that they have a great chance to compete next year. So they took a little more risk and took the guy with the bigger upside, and they're willing to wait a couple years on him and went Eli Willits. But the Anderson thing and getting him for $700K, does that tell us anything about Luke Stevenson's price? I'm assuming Becker is going to be an overslot guy at 57. Is Stevenson a slot-ish guy at 35, you think?
I think he's probably slot-ish. Everyone that I had talked to thought that Stevenson was going 25 to 37. So he landed where he expected to go. I honestly don't think Seattle has a chance at Luke Stevenson if Caden Bodine and Ike Irish don't go ahead of that. I think he would have gone to the Orioles. I think the Orioles quite liked him at 30 and 31, but they didn't expect him. They didn't expect Irish to be there at 19. So that kind of, changed the cards a little bit. By the way, with the way this draft worked out, how are you feeling if you're Adley Rutschman?
Yeah, because not only did they take a catcher, they took a
They
couple
took
of them.
2. They
Yeah,
took one that could defend, and they took one that could hit.
right.
So,
Like one's definitely a catcher and one's definitely a hitter. Like, yeah, I don't.
yeah, it's
Maybe it
kinda
just
it's
lights a
kinda
fire
scary to
under
me.
him because we know he's talented. We know he's relatively speaking at least has
Mm,
has struggled.
yeah, no, I
Mm,
think considering it's the Baltimore Orioles and considering Adley Rutschman is 2.5 years from, I don't think it's to light a fire under Adley
Well, I'm
Rutschman.
just I'm just saying maybe that's what it will do though.
It
And
might.
maybe
It might.
maybe he's thinking, dang, all right, bitches, right? Like I'll show you. I guess that's if you're the Orioles, that's what you hope it does. That's certainly not why you take players in the draft, but I mean, Seattle took Stevenson. He's a catcher, and I was joking with the buddy. I was like, well, they needed catching. That don't really have a whole lot of it. Only the guy having the greatest catcher season ever in the big leagues and a pretty darn good catching prospect in AAA right now, having a good year at 22 years old. They needed catching. I mean, you just take the best players, and you can do a lot with that. Um,
Well, hold on. Let's before we move on. I mean, come on. Like the trade deadline is approaching.
sure.
Harry Ford has been showcased at Tacoma. Luke Stevenson is going to go
Wait
right
a
to
second.
Everett.
Wait a second. Showcased? I mean, he's played. What's he? Is he supposed to
He's
sit the bench?
No, I mean, but the alternative is if you're not trying to showcase him, if you are throwing caution to the wind, I think you would have seen Seattle call him up during one of these hot streaks.
I think that hurts his value more than anything. I don't think
That's
anybody thinks
that's
he's.
that's that's precisely my point. Is
But
if they didn't care about his value, this is a conversation for another time. But I just think the fact that it wasn't Michael Oliveto, it wasn't one of the high school catchers, and it's a guy that
so
is
you're
going to go
talking
right to
about
Everett.
they took Stevenson because they feel like there's a pretty decent chance they're moving Harry Ford.
No. I think it's a combination of two things. I think they took Stevenson because they knew they needed catching depth, but also it does give them more ammo at the end of the month. It does.
Sure. I think you're trading for it anyway, though. If you can get the right deal for Ford that you like, whether you took Stevenson or Bodine or somebody else, you're trading him anyway, right? You do have Cal
Correct.
Raleigh, right? You'll go draft somebody next year. You'll go sign somebody next year. You have Garver for this year. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was
Sidebar.
really interesting that Steve. And the thing I like about Stevenson, that you get a left-handed hitter with some power there, who's got a lot of work to do on the hit tool. But you're right, he probably goes to Everett pretty early in his career, and maybe in year 2 gets to Double-A at 22, 23 years old, and you might have a guy knocking on the door with some, again, probably some trade value there, or maybe he could be your number 2 guy and DH a little bit, kind of like they were trying to do with Mitch Garver this season. All right, the Reds, Joe. Steele Hall at number 9. Billy Carlson was still on the board. Tell me why or why not the Reds should have done that. I think you like this pick.
I do. And, I honestly don't think, as you go through the draft and you kind of reflect on the players that are getting selected, I think, for me at least, I found myself looking at my board, not because players were going in a certain order, but just kind of reflecting on the tools and the player. I was too low on Steele Hall. And that might go without saying because I believe I had him 18 or 17 on my board, and he goes 9. But if you just think about it and you compare him to Billy Carlson, okay, Steele Hall is probably the best runner in the draft. It's an 8 run. If you watch him play shortstop, I've talked to scouts that have at times seen a 7 arm. The approach and hit tool are better than what Billy Carlson currently offers. Now, Billy has 4 inches and way more projection on him than on Steele Hall. But I just think if you kind of add the sum of its parts up together, you come up with a really good player here. A guy that is going to run a lot. He's going to play either shortstop or center field at a very high level. He's going to add value to your team with the arm. And even if he doesn't hit for a lot of power, even if Steele Hall is a guy that runs into, 10 or 12 homers at peak, if he's able to hit 275 with some of those tools, this is a prototype, top of the order, and potential impact defender somewhere up
Is
the
there
middle
some
of the
Trey
field.
Turner here? Is there some Trey Turner here?
Yeah, that's what people like to say. I personally have never really subscribed to that because Trey Turner was and still is just this really thin, pool noodle frame that has just grown into. Credit to Trey Turner and credit to the teams that have, the Nationals specifically. He's turned into a power hitter through mechanics and his swing, right? He's not strong. He's not inherently strong. But the swing really produces game power. Steele Hall is 5'11". He's 184 pounds. It's more of a stout scat back type frame. I don't think he's ever going to grow into the Trey Turner traits. But, at the same time, when Trey Turner was selected, people were saying, I don't know if this guy's going to ever hit 10 homers in a season. And look at what he's turned himself into. So I just think there are a lot of avenues to providing value for Steele Hall, and the hit tool and approach are strong enough to really kind of buoy the overall player. The thing with Carlson that you really have to think, while the tools are great, the frame is great, and the glove is great at shortstop, people question if he's going to hit enough to
there's
to be a good big
league, right? Like if he does,
he's going to need some time.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Does that remind you of anyone that's in the minors now, or maybe in the majors now, or when they were drafted? It's like there's some legitimate, upside here. Like this is a top 5 to 20 prospect, but it's going to take him some time. Can you think of anybody that was like, where did Chase the Lauder go?
Are you talking about Billy?
Yeah, I'm talking about Carlson. Yeah, where they just looked at a guy and was like, okay, there's upside here, but it's going to take some work for him to. I mean, there's a little Johnny Farmelo in that, because if Farmelo had and still does a little bit, we're gonna have to make some adjustments here. I think Carlson has a higher profile than Farmelo did heading into that draft a couple of years ago. But it's interesting to see the Reds not just go, we're going for the Downs. But again, maybe they think they are. Is there a big price difference between Hall and Carlson at 9?
I mean, I would. It's probably pretty close. It's probably pretty close. Yeah, I mean, both of them were. I was talking to some teams immediately behind those picks, and they were both lined up to take one of those two players. So, I think they were both going 9 to 12, and so I don't think the price difference is going to be that vast.
Sure. Tell me your initial reactions to the Orioles haul on day one. Started at 19 with Ike Irish, then went Caden Bodine, Vahiva Aloy, a player that I really like, Slater DeBrun. That was their top 4 picks, and I think they had 3 more on top of that. So they basically got like 4 top 50 players or so. Yeah,
I mean, my first blush is overwhelming. 6 picks, like it's 7 picks actually. It's a lot of draft picks to go over for 3 rounds. Like I love Ike Irish. I have him as my number 10 player in this class. There's been some stuff floating around as to why he slipped to where he slipped, but I still think this is a guy that you can plug in to right field at Camden Yards, and I think his defense plays nicely in Camden Yards. Caden Bodine is probably the best, if not close to the best, defensive catcher in this class. And when you look at where they are at with Adley Rutschman, I think it's nice to have someone other than Samuel Basallo as
who might not be a catcher, right?
Who might not be a catcher, right? Vahiva Aloy is an interesting pick. Tools, I guess the only thing with Aloy, and I know you always take the best player available with the most value, but Jackson Holiday, Jorge Mateo, Gunnar Henderson. I know Mateo is going to be gone by the time he arrives, but
sure, Jordan Westberg, absolutely.
Jordan Westberg,
same conversation in my own head, absolutely.
So I think like if you're at pick 31, and I had Aloy at like 17 on my board, so I'm not saying it was a bad pick by any means. But if I'm the Orioles and I'm looking at where their organization is, I probably personally would have considered an AJ Russell or a Marcus Phillips or an arm there, but I get it. I love the Slater DeBrun pick. I spent a week with the guy. He is a culture setter, that one. And then, Joseph DeZirwa, JT Quinn, both good picks. RJ Austin, I thought was appropriately valued in the 3rd. So yeah, I mean, they ended up with a lot of very, very good players. I don't know if Aloy would have been my pick personally at 31 with what the Orioles do well and what they need currently, but I get it.
Yeah, big fan of Aloy myself. Take the shot, because if it works out, you have yourself a pretty darn good shortstop there.
And it also, like, value is value, and if you don't have a spot for him, you trade him for Yeah,
it's
whatever.
the same as the catcher conversation we were just having. You didn't draft a catcher because you needed one. That's not the reason. It might have been a reason. I mean, that happens. You need everything. Everybody needs everything. The A's, I thought, had a pretty good. They only had 2 picks on day one, but I thought they had a pretty good day to get Arnold at 11, Joe, and then Devin Taylor at 48. I thought that was pretty good value, getting Devin Taylor at 48 after getting Arnold at 11. They obviously went college, which is, pretty classic for that Oakland organization. It's been essentially people over there running the show for 78 years. So we shouldn't be surprised that not a whole lot has changed. They've evolved a little bit, but not a whole lot has changed over there. Pretty decent day for a team that only had 2 picks.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can pull Jamie Arnold down to pick 11, you got to be pretty thrilled. I think I ended up with Arnold at 7 or 8 on my board. I really like that fit. I mean, a lot. This is a guy that I know JP Sears hasn't been unbelievable, but you get these guys in spring training together, just working together and so on and so forth. Jamie Arnold is the type of arm in this class that can contribute in 2026. And this A's team is showing that they can score runs. And I think they're going to be able to score runs for years to come. They've got to be able to get hitters out in their rotation. And while I think that there's some relief risk with Jamie Arnold, man, this is a shot that you 1000% take if you're the Athletics, especially with where they're at in their current organizational build. And then Devin Taylor is a guy that, there are guys that had Devin Taylor inside of the top 30 picks. He goes 48. Another guy that should move fast. It's a very, very polished hit tool with some limited defensive value. And this Athletics team could use a corner outfielder right now that can hit. So
what's funny here, Joe, is I feel like
it was a perfect draft.
I feel like if the Angels swapped their first 2 picks with the A's first 2 picks, we would have actually liked what the Angels did and be like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. But we're not saying that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite pick in the round?
Yeah, I think, man, I've thought about this a lot. I've struggled with it actually a little bit. I think my favorite pick in the round was probably, I think the Sean Gamble pick at 23 to the Royals is one of my favorite picks. I think Sean Gamble is slept on a little bit in this class. He's 6'2", he's 195 pounds. It's plus run, it's plus arm, it's center field. It's a swing that projects to hit. Yeah, I mean, I think he was announced. Oh yeah, he was announced as an outfielder. Good. So I loved that pick. The other one that I think might have been a little bit of a reach, but I'm also a huge fan of him is Dax Kilby to the Yankees at 39. Just so Yankees fans are listening, I don't think Dax Kilby is going to play shortstop. So all of this Volpe erasure, like, stop. But this kid is a 7-run. He's got raw power. He can throw a little bit. I think he's going to be a third baseman. Those are the 2 that immediately stand out. And I'll throw out one more. I guess this is cheating, but I don't care. I loved Gavin Feene to the Rangers at pick 12. That's a scary pick, I think, because as we've talked about, he was the best hitter in the country at the high school position last summer. And I've said this on other podcasts. It's impossible to fake that. You can't just you can't in high school baseball, you can't just be hot for 125 plate appearances on the international scene and it's fake. So I loved that pick.
Yeah, the Rangers, by the way, and we'll close out with them. They went to Tennessee and took AJ Russell at 52, and then Josh Owens, who was announced as a 2-way player, at 84. To me, just watching him looks a little bit more like a hitter to me. Really interesting draft. But Texas to me is a little bit like the Angels, just a little too much if you're a Rangers fan. Look what they've done with really, really good arms. Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
What exactly is Kumar Rocker right now? What exactly is Jack Leiter right now? Sometimes he looks good, sometimes he doesn't. Like, I don't know that. And obviously these kids are going to go there and, and they're going to be themselves. And if AJ Russell is healthy, he's still AJ Russell, right? It's a pretty good guy who, had a chance to go to the back side of the first round. 6'6", 220, 225, like big prototypical dude. But Texas hasn't done anything with those guys. So when I look at that, like if you're an Astros fan and you're looking at the Rangers draft, you're like, dang, they got Gavin Feene, AJ Russell. I would be like, dang, they got Gavin Feene, and they took a pitcher. And I wouldn't even really care, to be honest with you. If I'm a fan, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, because they just haven't done anything. And it just seems like, I don't know. And I'm reaching here a little bit, because I think a fun conversation is how good are teams at finding players that match what they're good at developing. And I think the teams that do that matching the best are actually the best in the draft. That's why we talk about the same teams, basically every year the last 5 or 10 years. And I don't think Texas has proven, at least, that they're one of those teams. I think it's pretty clear they haven't.
Yeah, I certainly buy that, and I agree with that. They haven't put together pitching development yet, but I think they've been targeting the right players, and I think they've got the right people in place to change over the pitching development process in Texas. So I actually have Texas as one of my top 5 or 6 teams from day one. That is entirely incumbent on them doing right by AJ Russell and turning him in to what he could be, because it's in my blurb at Future Star Series for AJ Russell. This is the single most unique ball of clay that you can acquire in the 2025 draft. It's elite extension. It's 6'6". It's a 57-inch release height with carry through the zone. Like it is Jacob deGrom type traits, release characteristics. He's been hurt. He's barely pitched. He's got a ton to prove. But if you ever wanted to transform a pitcher into something that they could one day become, like I think I said this last week on a podcast, and I know I keep saying that, but I've been on a lot of podcasts. I think there is a universe where AJ Russell is a top 50 prospect in the sport 1 year from today. And that falls on the Texas Rangers to get him there.
Mm-hmm. So he's been hurt and hasn't pitched much. I mean, that fits right in with the Rangers, though.
True.
They certainly have experience with that, right? Signing guys, drafting guys, trading for guys. So hopefully it works out. Yeah. The Dodgers are probably the only team worse with that than the Rangers lately. Anyway, good stuff there. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we're through 3 rounds plus that one extra pick after round 3. I think it was just one. That supplemental, it was Nate Snead. It was the Angels. So starting round 4, Monday morning, it's the White Sox, Rockies, and Marlins. 3 of the most exciting teams in Major League Baseball, by the way, with the first 3 picks in round 4. Sorry, it's late, and I think we're both exhausted. But before we get to, I want to ask you about the best players on your board. Give me 5 or 6 names and some notes or whatever. But you get back to the hotel from the draft, and it's time to eat something because you've been busy breaking all this news. You were first with pretty much every pick I saw. You were nailing it. So it's exhausting, though. You fly, you wake up, you get to the draft, you talk to a bunch of people, you stand up, you sit down, you walk around, you're doing all this work. Your phone is just lit the entire time. And then you get back to the hotel. It's time to eat something.
Are we really going to go into this?
What did you reach for? I've already seen the answer to this. What did you reach for? So when we talked on the phone like a half an hour ago, I was like, I don't even care if you're like eating an ice cream cone or something like that. And you made some ice cream cone joke, but I was being serious. But what did you actually grab?
There was nothing to eat from the stadium to my hotel.
I want to say, I know it's within reach. I know you got it right there.
You want to see it?
You were eating them when we jumped on.
I'm eating a slightly larger than normal bag of Sun Chips, and I'm drinking a Michelob Ultra.
It is almost midnight in Atlanta, and Joe Doyle is eating Sun Chips and drinking Michelob Ultra. This is so going all over the internet.
Yeah, man. I feel like if you could personify what a gas station would look like as a human being, that's what I feel like.
This is the biggest. If anybody ever wondered how old is Joe Doyle, here's how you know he's 24 years old. Look what the hell he's eating and drinking.
The problem is I'm 35 and my metabolism is falling apart.
Been there, done that, dude. I did that a long time ago. You get it back. That's a good thing. You figure out how to get it back and you feel great, but not because of the Michelob Ultra and the fucking sun chips.
I walked home from the stadium, so I feel like I earned it in the 90-degree weather all day.
All right, before we let you go, tell us about tomorrow. There's still a lot of pretty good talent on the board.
Yeah.
Some of it's surprising. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most surprising name that's still on the board for me is a top 50 college shortstop slash second baseman, Colby Shelton out of Florida. I've got him at 47 on my board. We're through 105 picks. I'm, really surprised with the defensive versatility that he showed and the bat speed and the raw power and the peak exit velos that he showed. There were some similar players to him that were in my 125 to 175 range that popped off the board in the third round. So I'm a little bit surprised that Colby Shelton is still there. And I'm even more surprised he's still there because he was a draft eligible sophomore in 2024, doesn't sign, elects to go back to Florida to, try and improve his draft stock. So he's a third-year junior here, and he's still on the board. That one's a little bit surprising to me. I think this is a year that there's so much money in this draft that I think some of these high schoolers that are still on the board have a pretty good chance to still go. My number 38 prospect is a right-handed pitcher out of Evansville, Indiana, by the name of Matthew Fisher. Like I said, I think I said 38 on my board. I wouldn't be surprised if he still gets paid. I think Fisher has a chance to, in 4 years or 5 years, have the best fastball from this class. And then there's a couple of other high schoolers that, again, with the money that's out there, Coy James out of Davie County, Landon Schaefer out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. And then I would look for Mason Pike, the shortstop slash right-handed pitcher out of Puyallup, to also go in the fourth round. So, we'll see. Colby Shelton and another one, Colin Yeaman, shortstop out of UC Irvine. I'm surprised they're still on the board.
One quick one, actually two quick ones for you. Daniel Dickinson, is that a fourth round guy? Because there was some rumors that maybe somewhere late in 2 or in 3, that's a guy that makes sense. Just a high contact, pretty decent runner, gritty guy, hits line drives, gets on base. That's kind of his game. Chance at round 4 for him.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I had him in the fourth round on my board. He was 124 on my final board. I think that he fits for sure in the 4th or 5th round, and I would expect him to go early.
Yeah. Is Henry Ford signable at this point? He's the kid out of Virginia, college committed to Tennessee. It's a big program, 6'5", 220, a lot of power, first base, outfield. Is he signable at this point? We're through 3 rounds. We're into the hundreds now. Anybody got any money left where that might actually make some sense?
He's signable. I think the issue here is Henry Ford is a draft eligible sophomore. He came into the season as a top 25 prospect in the draft. For me, he was number 25. He had a tough year, off to a slow start, and then he committed to Tennessee, and he probably has a bag of cash attached to his name to go play in the SEC. So he was number 70 on my board for the draft. I would think at this point, and I could be wrong, that he's just going to go and try and reestablish his draft stock and make $3.5 or $4 million in 2026. So I actually think some of the high schoolers that I mentioned prior are more likely to get drafted and signed than Ford is.
Slot to start the top of the 4th round is about $720,000. We got the White Sox at $722, and then it goes to $715. So you're really quickly under $700,000, really, really early in round 4. And if it's going to take $1.5 million or more to get him to sign, yeah, it sounds like he's going to Tennessee. Interesting. Tomorrow's more of a holy wow, 90 players were picked the last time I looked at the board, sort of a day. But there are a lot of good, you just mentioned a bunch of them. There are a lot of good major leaguers right now that were drafted after round 3. And I hope people stay on the draft, continue to pay attention, because whoever your favorite team is, I don't care if it's the Marlins, the Rockies, the White Sox, the 3 most exciting teams in baseball, the Angels, the Blue, it doesn't matter. The rounds 4 through 20 matter. If you want to say that round 20 and 18 and 19 and 17 don't really matter that much, sure, you're right. But rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, certainly matter. And we've seen guys get to the big leagues from 11, 12, 13, 14th round almost in every draft, Joe. So it does absolutely matter. You build depth there, and occasionally you get someone surprise you and it becomes an everyday guy or somebody that pitches in the middle of your rotation.
Yep, and I would say that's got to be the focus going into day 2. There's some good college arms to be excited about. Matt Barr out of Niagara, still on the board. Cal Scolari out of San Diego, still on the board. I would throw Jared Spencer at Texas, who had a torn up shoulder and it cost him the rest of the year, but he looked like a second round pick before he got hurt. Still on the board. So I would watch for the college pitchers that come off the board in the 4th and 5th round, because there's still some metric darlings out there for players to have as good clay.
Yeah, that makes it fun. Follow Joe on the old Twitter box at Joe Doyle MILB. I have typed your Twitter handle 400 times in like the last 2 days. And I'm not really exaggerating by that much. It's probably like 250 for real. I'm tired of it. I think you should change it just so I can type something different for a while. But it's at Joe Doyle MILB. Joe Doyle FSS Plus, and the Overslot podcast. You can find his final mock draft, which is now history, but a good chance to compare what happened and what Joe thought was going to happen, and his draft board, which is relevant through 615 players. Because why, Joe? There's 615 picks the last time I checked.
Hey, and listen, I'm 105 for 105, and last year some random hidden JUCO kid ruined my day. So
what you're saying is that every single player that was drafted you had on your board is what you're saying, with a full
report. And I hope I can make it through. My goal every year is to make it through 5 rounds before the Hidden Valley Ranch Community College of Missouri third baseman is taken. We'll see if I can make it through 4 or 5 tomorrow, but it'll be good.
That's impressive. 105 for 105. Joe, we'll catch up later. Appreciate your time, man.
See you, man.
This has been Draft and Develop FSS Plus, FutureStarsSeries.com.